Welcome back to Mindkind Podcasts. This is Dr. Jo North returning to our platform. Mindkind continues to be a reflective space for anyone who wants to stay sane in our demanding world. Our intention is to inspire, motivate, and inform people of all ages interested in mental health and well-being. I'll be drawing on 35 years of practice as a psychotherapist, and we'll be looking at research and therapy along the way and talking with other experts in the field so we can draw on their skill. If something affects the mind, we'll be talking about it. So let's get on with today's podcast. Hello, welcome back to our Mindkind Podcasts. We're continuing with looking at mental health and all the things that impact and affect us in our lives. So this week, I am looking at how busy we get and how busy families get and how this impacts on children and their mental health and their parents and their whole existence. So busy families and mental health. Welcome to our podcast. I'm actually talking to myself this week, which is fairly productive thing to do. I've got a lot to say about busy families, and pretty soon I'll be getting some of our experts in to talk with us. Last week we had Avremi Rosenberg and we were talking about violence in the home, and I hope that was useful. Avremi and I will be talking some more on that soon. But if you are a family and you have young children or teenage children or even older children or babies, and you find yourself stressed as a parent, you're going to find that your children pick up on that stress. And a lot of parents come to me and say that they're worried about their children and their anxiety, but actually what they're worried about are their lives. And if we can help parents de-stress, then we can help the children de-stress as well. And one of the key themes that I am continually going to put to us is the idea that parent stress affects child stress. Parent mind affects child mind. And so the first thing you've got to do is look to yourself and start to see how you can de-escalate stress in yourself. And that's what we're going to be talking about today. Anxious parents get anxious kids. So I guess that one of the keys is to help you feel that you can take control and get back in the driving seat in your home. And I'm going to encourage behavior change. And behavior change means small steps forward. And so a tiny little step forward every day in terms of slightly shifting the culture of your home is going to make a big impact and have more enduring effect in the long run. You don't want to go rushing in and announce to your family there's going to be changes and try to throw everything in the air and change it all at once, because that's actually just going to scare everybody. And that's the least of what we want. So I am always encouraging families to do things like tidy their environment, manage time well, and think together about calm. And so if we just took those three things alone, we would be thinking about the impact on the mind and therefore the impact on mental health. So let's think about adults in the home, and let's think about how things become chaotic. And basically because you're busy, mums are working, dads are working, you're rushing around in busy traffic with busy demanding schedules. Children are trying to do things and do their homework, and they still need your attention. And we see a lot of conflict in parents around, am I giving enough time to my children? Am I organizing enough? And at the same time, most families these days are worried about their income and have they got enough money coming in? Are the bills going to get paid? Is the car going to break down? You know, is the washing machine going to break anytime soon? These things really matter because they get in the way of the flow of our life. So really what I want for you is to help you start to think about a focus of getting back in the flow. And that does not mean that everything's going to go right, because That's not what our lives are ever going to be about. Nothing is going to be perfect. Things are going to go wrong. Things are going to break down. Your time schedule is going to go crazy. It's not about what goes wrong. It's about how you manage it that matters. And that's the sort of thinking I'm going to encourage in you. Let's think about time and time management. I see miracles happen when people manage their time. And what I suggest to you is that you get a timesheet. You can probably find one on your phone, and you can probably sketch one out or do it however you like. But start to work together. Don't work individually, because you need to be thinking together on this. If you're in a together relationship, you might be a single parent and you might be parenting or caring alone. That doesn't matter at all. At least you don't have to coincide your thinking with somebody else. But if you're in a couple, you need to be working together on this. And you can see all sorts of things start to shift with tiny shifts in time frames. Like, for example, supposing you get more control over what time you get up in the mornings, and you start to work at that particular behavior. Do you get up in enough time? Do you give yourself enough space to let yourself feel calm? Do you then get the children awake? Do the children have enough information to be able to prepare for their next day? Are they old enough to be able to prepare for their next day? Because one of the things we're always thinking about is development in a child. And in fact, are they capable? Are you working together on the schedule? Have you got your clothes set out? Have you got everything put in place to give you the triggers to do the right thing? So, for example, one of the things you can do is get the lunchtime sandwiches that the children take to school made up the night before. Or you could set out the breakfast things on the night before, or you could get your own clothes set out the night before. All of this preparation, all these markers of the next step are incredibly supportive. So what you're doing all the time is supporting yourself to feel good through the process. And if you're feeling good and managing your time, then your children will feel better and calmer in the end. And this goes hand in hand with tidying the environment. So, I always used to say to my children, the state of your bedroom is the state of your mind. And they used to mimic me, of course, and think that was hilarious. But now that they're growing up, they absolutely know that order actually dictates what goes on in our minds, and what goes on in our mind dictates what goes on in our environment. So they are a mirror of each other. There is an equivalence between them. So if all else fails, just tidy the room a tiny bit. Tidy up a bookshelf, or find somewhere for the kids to keep their shoes, or tidy one drawer. And I'm very much of the mind that if you took a tiny, tiny step every day or even every week towards organizing your home, that eventually after 6 months, you would have order and you would be feeling better. The good thing about the two things I've suggested so far about managing time and about tidying your environment, first of all, are that they have a huge impact on your mind and your thinking and your brain. And secondly, they cost absolutely nothing, absolutely zero. Nobody needs to have to agree with you on them. You can just take actions that start to make a difference. It's preferable if everybody's on board, and if you've got older children, you could start to talk with them about getting them to join in with the new plan. That's a great idea. But if everyone wants to ignore you, never mind, you start going in that direction anyway, and you might find that soon they'll be coming along after you. I can't stress enough the importance of getting these small things together, making little shifts in preparation for the next day, and getting your mind ready that things are going to be calmer and more under control. Some years ago, a parent came to me and said, never mind whether it was a male or female, because I never identify my case studies, it's just a general picture. They came to me and said, my child is anxious and I would like you to find skills for him or her to help this change. Now, I want you to know that as someone who works a lot with children, I always hunch my shoulders up to my ears when I hear parents say, please find skills for my child so that they can manage everything themselves. I don't like to hear it at all. It's slightly misguided view that our inner life of our anxieties, our emotions, our fears, and all of our thoughts and imaginings are all under our control. But in fact, what parents really need to know is it's very contextual. It depends on the environment around the child a lot of the time. We can teach children to gradually have more control, but a lot of what we do is to do with context. So, I looked with these parents at the child's life and they told me about the child's timetable. And when I heard about it, I pinpointed this because it was absolutely jammed packed with activities, wonderful activities and life enhancing activities, but there were too many. There was dance, there was judo, there was acrobatics, there was swimming, there was brownies, there was everything you could possibly imagine. So I sat down with the parents and I said, look, first of all, this schedule's too busy. And they were really, really horrified and really wanted to go back to thinking about techniques. What I had to say to them was this, and it's a hard truth, and it's something we all have to swallow. So big shout out to those parents because they got it in the end. Look, we're doing too much. Our lives are too busy. We're so excited about life and learning that we're trying to ram too much in. There's nothing wrong with being a person that's so excited about learning that we put a lot in or wanting our children to be the best they can be. But there is something wrong with trying to put a pint into a half pint pot. And in my view, that's a definition of stress. So, when these parents had settled down with this new idea, and well done them for doing that because it required a shift in thinking, we went through that timetable and we weeded out what was not necessary. And we started with what does this child really like to do and love to do? And what are they just having to do? And that obviously required a conversation with the young person. And in the end, we found that dance was very preferable and very enjoyable. And I would say a wonderful way to deal with stress, very social, connecting mind and body. Fantastic. So we kept that in. And I said, maybe that's it. Just cut it right back. And because this child had homework and then there was family life and all the things going on in the child's life. And a few months later, when I saw them again, the child had a beautiful smile and she was happy and she was energetic and cheerful. The parents had to get over the fact that their child was not a machine. So, as I say, wonderful thinking on behalf of these parents. But these days we think of ourselves as machines. We get a hold of those phones with those iPhones or those electronic gadgets that run our lives. And we keep pressing those buttons and we just think we do more and more. We think we can do more and more. And I'm as much a victim of that as anybody. And the challenge here is self management, self regulation in order to reduce stress. If you reduce stress, you will be happier. So we need to work at these things. We need to give it some thought. We need to be able to say stop. And we need to understand that we won't die if we have less of something. But we might get quite poorly if we keep having more and more and more. And this brings me on to the idea of downtime, which is what I was describing to these parents. The brain needs sociability and it needs activity. And we love the big dopamine hit that we get on that phone. But we also need downtime and out of it time to be well. And this is the piece that we're missing. So, if you want to have a stress less home, and I wouldn't say stress free because life is busy and stressful at times, and we mustn't be afraid of some stress because it's actually quite good for us to have a little bit. you need to start thinking about factoring in downtime. So go back to that time management frame and start thinking about how can I actually put in downtime. So is that going to be Saturdays in the afternoon? So let's think about, what does downtime look like? It is not playing with your phone, adults and children alike. That is not downtime. It might be playing in the garden. It might be playing a board game. It might be going for a walk together. It would be watching a film together. It would be just sitting together and chatting about your week. It might be going in the kitchen and making a cake together. But what it definitely isn't is, oh, let's play a computer game on that phone one more time. And we're going to talk about that some more in a minute. So the big, big word of the day is downtime. Let's take some more examples of what downtime means. It means getting out of your head and all of your thoughts and all of your planning and all of your activities and getting back into your body. And that's why playing games is a great way to have downtime. It means existing from the neck downwards. It could mean having a good stretch with some stretch bands, or rolling on an exercise ball, in order to just feel your body again. Now, kids need this, mums and dads need this, and you could start doing this together. And I know what children are like. When you introduce a new idea, they're going to have a little laugh at you. They're going to resist it, but never mind. We just carry on and do it anyway. And one great way to do that is to simply do this. Put your hand on your heart and breathe through your nose. A great big breath in, and then breathing out for a little more than you breathe in. But the trick is hand on heart, little tiny, tiny bit of pressure. Quite a nice lot of air in through the nose, not in through the mouth, preferably, unless there's some kind of physical problem, because that we know that the nose for breathing enhances our intake, and then out through the mouth for slightly more than you take in. And even if you just did that for 5 minutes with your family, you would, and then a little stretch perhaps afterwards, you would find a big, big difference. You would find that their joy increased, that their energy increased, and that things looked possible. The great thing about downtime is that it's a wonderful opportunity for problem solving. I often find that I can go to bed with a huge problem in my mind, and when I wake up in the morning after a good night's sleep, it's solved and I know what to do. Sometimes I can lay down for 10 minutes and solve a problem. So our brains, actually, we might think downtime is a bit lazy, but actually our brain is working quite hard to organize itself during sleep and during downtime. So this is all wonderful. The brain does love to be organized. It does love to be coherent, and it puts itself back into place, given half a chance. The problem is we don't give ourselves time to take half a chance. Let's think some more about calm and our emotional states. There are 3 hormones that really affect and impact on our mental health. And these are dopamine and oxytocin and serotonin. So these can have a very positive impact on our brains. But if we don't encourage them into our mind, then we can actually feel very, very much as if we're being run down and lead towards feeling depressed. So dopamine is, I always think it sounds a little bit like the word dopey, as in when you're dopey, you're very, very relaxed. So I've always called it the big buzz reward hormone. And we can actually induce this hormone into our body through things like sugar and alcohol, and through the big buzz of the phone. Press that button, you get something fun going on. Press it again, you get something new, something exciting for the mind. And that's a super idea, but we can't all of those activities that I've just mentioned, sugar, alcohol, and the phone, will actually degenerate the brain in the end, degenerate your well-being. The other hormone is oxytocin, which is something that we get into our system and increase in our system with our social connection with others. So our friends, our chatting, our friendly communications. So, and it's given a great big boost if we say have a hug with our partner or have a hug with our kids. And particularly, oxytocin is a wonderful reward. If you're helping others, it comes into the system. We feel good about ourselves. And so being in charitable work or just saying hi and helping someone out a bit is a great way to boost, actually, really could be, seems quite selfish really, is just boost your own system while helping someone else. And then we have serotonin, which is put into the system or developed more in the system through going outdoors, walking in nature, and particularly through the food that we eat, and particularly through our sleeping habits and our resting habits. So if you can imagine in a stressed household where food is, say, thrown on the table really quickly. I know how that happens. It does happen. And we sort of like launch ourselves into bed and we're fiddling around on the phone and not going off to sleep. And we hardly ever see the outdoors. You're going to be really short of serotonin in the system. And so there's lots that we can do to train our brain to stop all the things that aren't good. And secondly, increase these wonderful hormones into the system so that our brain's doing really well and stands half a chance of surviving. So there's some great, really simple habits that can help. The other weekend, I was out walking on a Sunday with my husband, and we were walking down the lane to our house, and there was a family walking up the lane. And they were really friendly and stopped and chatted to us. And they said that they had got the children up at 7:30 in the morning, had breakfast, packed a picnic, and they had been walking all day. And they met with us, I think it was about 5 o'clock in the afternoon. The kids were really happy. They'd eaten their picnic and they had I think they had another 3 to 4 miles to go before they got home. And this had cost them nothing. I mean, it didn't even cost them a drink because they only had water with them. At the time, my husband and I, we go litter picking down our lane. We're a bit like that, and makes us feel good anyway. And the kids started to help us pick up litter. They were such friendly children. One of them got into a big puddle that I couldn't get in, so that she could help out. It's just wonderful to see the parents' commitment to walking with the kids, probably putting up with a bit of moaning on the way. And the second thing that played into, the kids didn't have their phones with them, so they were just literally walking in the fresh air. By the way, it was a cold day. And so this was so simple, but you don't have to do an all-day walk. And quite frankly, you'd never find me doing that. But you can do half an hour around the block with the kids. Not everyone lives in the countryside. Many of us live in absolutely suburban areas or built up cities. Well, you can still go for a walk. You can walk around the block or find an interesting route to take, which would be wonderful. So another thing to be able to do is hug your kids. Now, don't hug them if they're being horrible. If they're being really, really naughty and you need to help them get their discipline act together, you're not going to feel like hugging them, but hug them when they get it right. And the more you hug them when they get it right, the more they'll be happy and want to get things right. So take a look at hugs in your family and make sure that these things that are freely available, because they don't cost anything, I would say check with older children if they want to hug first, because I think sometimes that older children and middle childhood children, they start to say, oh no, I don't want to hug right now, and they have a good boundary around their body, which is their personal space. So you could check, do you want to hug? And then the hugging can be something it's better than money, and it's the best currency in the world. So check out, are you short of hugs? It'll make you feel better and it will make everyone around you feel better. And encourage children to talk with friends. So get their friends in perhaps might be a lovely way. I mean, it's great that they talk on the phone, and there's nothing wrong with that. And that is part of their well-being. But get friends in for tea like we used to before we had phones, and see if that can help them out a little bit. Okay. So we're going to control those phones. And I think we're going to put a whole session towards phone control and the impact of phones on children, because it's huge these days. And I think we need to start seeing this as a wonderful route to self-regulation and self-control. There's some wonderful things about our phones, and we just need to discipline ourselves and be able to say the word stop and press the stop button, so that we are the master of the phone and the phone isn't master of us and part of an addictive pattern. So I'm not going to get too strung up on all the things we can do to help children with their phones now, but we definitely are going to be talking about it in the future. When we're trying to help families to de-stress, one of the things that I do focus on with parents is they inquire as to the details of their child's diet. And sometimes parents are a bit surprised by this, but you'd be incredibly amazed at the results that we get if we can start helping children out with a really good whole food based diet with less sugar. And again, it requires a little bit of thought. And I would say to you as a parent, don't start beating yourself up about this. Don't make this yet another cause of stress in your life, but just take a look. And rather than see what you can take out, take a look at what you can include in. And some of these products that have gut bacteria in can be incredibly helpful to children. We get a lot of children these days with stressy tummies and irritable bowel type symptoms and discomfort in the stomach area. And really, a lot of that is emotional, but food does affect the stomach and the gut. And in fact, what we know now is that the bacteria in the gut is very, very influential on mental health. And poor food can be the cause of anxiety and depression. A lot of studies show that great food can make a big difference. So just start looking at swaps for a kickoff. Look at maybe finding to see which nuts your children might like. And there's such a range of nuts. And not everybody likes all nuts. I certainly don't. I think there's about 2 that I like to eat. But what I find is that I just include those in my diet every day. There couldn't possibly be anything more nourishing or good for your gut than the right nut. I think that rhymes. That's wonderful. But check with your children and do a wonderful exploration with them. Hey, what do you like? Because we're going to start having these at snack times. So check out they haven't got allergies, of course, if they haven't been used to nuts. So include in rather than exclude, because then you'll have a big fight on your hands. Now, the thing is, if you up the protein and you up the natural fiber of a child's food, which you will be doing if they have just a small handful of nuts every day, you probably find that there's more opportunity to reduce the sugar. And I absolutely can say without any shadow of doubt that you will need to reduce the sugar. I don't think we need to make our child's life a misery, but we need to help our children understand that actually too much sugar is just going to make us feel bad. It causes constipation, it causes obesity, it causes diabetes. And I mean, I'm not a medic, but I know that there'll be any number of diseases caused by excess sugar. So just start to take a look at sugar and take a look at where you can put in something else. So one thing is breakfast cereals. And take a look and talk with your kids. You don't have to get their permission to start thinking differently, and see if they will perhaps have something like muesli or something like wholemeal toast or something like cheese with toast. Or it doesn't have to cost loads. You don't have to have avocado for breakfast to be doing the right thing at all. It just has to be without sugar, if it possibly can be. And again, take a look at drink, because so many of us get trapped in consuming drinks that are rammed with sugar. And this includes all the luxury coffees that we have. And I've been as guilty as anyone of that in my lifetime. And the number of calories alone, even if you don't put sugar in, some of these luxury coffees are absolutely packed with all the things that you don't need. But particularly with children, we need to be looking at these energy drinks that they have, and obviously anything with sugar in it. Now, there's one to start to work on. I know a lot of children have come to me with really, really big problems. And the poor things need such a lot of help with getting off those sugary drinks. One child I can think of right now only drinks those energy drinks, doesn't drink anything else at all. So we've got a big piece of work to do to help this young person, male or female, doesn't sort of matter to identify them, but just to help them learn that water is a drink. So most of us know that, but a lot of us aren't taking the right action. And so I would advise you, if you look anywhere, look at sugary snacks and look at sugary drinks, and talk with your children about the idea that there's going to be a change of plan. Now, I know that the jury is still out when it comes to diet, say for example, diet drinks with fake and alternative sugars in. The jury is still out on that. I've fallen down on the side of saying that I think diet drinks probably aren't as good for us as any other kind of sugary drink, but it is a start. And so I don't think that we should feel guilty about saying to kids, right, well, it's Diet Coke from now on, or it's diet this or diet that. It's a starting point. It's not because we're putting them on a diet, it's because we're reducing that sugar. So don't you feel bad if that's where you're starting. The first step is what matters. So there's nothing like starting the day with a glass of water. Now, I won't say this to children, but I can say it to adults and parents. Start your day with a glass of water. If you get nothing right, wake up and replenish your system. You only need a glass you can make it warm. Imagine it's tea if you like. You can have your coffee later. You can have your tea later, but have a lovely glass of water. There's a start to de-stress your body and mind and to do the very, very best for yourself. So this is what we're talking about. We're talking about doing the best for yourself as a parent so that you can increase all of those wonderful hormones and those lovely endorphins, and you can feel better and brighter and start to live a better life with your children. You will notice that a lot of what I say relates to not having to spend money to de-stress. And I think that's really important. I don't think it matters whether you're a very wealthy person who is a parent or a very poor person who hasn't got a lot of money who is a parent. And I think I can safely say to you, I have had experiences of both in my life. It does not matter. You're still a parent and the rules are the same. And you don't need money in order to be stress-free. And you can be stress-free and lead a wonderful life, even if you have a lot less money. So don't go making that an excuse. In fact, I would say that some of the really difficult examples of stress I've seen is where people try to throw money at the problem as a solution. So we'll buy this in, we'll buy that in, or we'll buy in some exercise machine, or we'll buy in some kind of other course. And it's like, no, that's not doing it. What is doing it is giving your brain some downtime, taking some deep breaths, going for a walk, having a hug, being kind to people. And let's talk about a few more things. It doesn't matter how much or how little you have in life. This is what I have a key theme around this whole sort of poverty wealth line, because I don't really think it should make a difference to us. But one of the key themes is to find some gratitude, the emotion of gratitude. Now, it's a little trite if you're having a very, very bad time in your life, if someone comes along to you and says be grateful, and probably the first thing you want to do is hit them, and I wouldn't blame you. But what I will say to you is this, that gratitude is a fantastic emotion to create in the body. It really does increase the positive impact on the mind. So even if you're having the toughest time in the world, try to find a few things that you're grateful for. So it might be that your child is healthy, or it might be that you have strength, or it might be that you're still breathing, or it might be that you're still standing. Sometimes it's very, very simple things, but it really does work. And I find that when I encourage people to just think of a few things to put on their gratitude list each day, that it starts to shift their thinking into the other side of their brain, because we can get very stitched up with focusing on our to-do lists, which cause us a lot of stress, and forgetting to set ourselves free and live in another aspect of the brain, more in the limbic system, and create great emotions. And we go straight there if we start thinking in terms of gratitude. Yeah, we can sort out the things we're angry about, we can sort out the things that are not working, but start with a baseline of some gratitude. And as I say, it doesn't matter whether you're rich or poor. If you're breathing, in my view, something good is happening in life. So we can always dance together, put on music and dance. And there's nothing better than music and dance to move the body and get the brain shifting perspective and get those endorphins moving for us. So the other beautiful things I really advise, and it's one thing I do is stretch every day. Stretch a few times a day, and just notice when your body says thank you so much. I love stretching. And the other thing that, you can fake it till you make it here, but laughing is the most fantastic thing for putting a feel-good factor in the brain. And in fact, there's been quite a number of studies with prominent mental health practitioners who create groups to laugh, just to make people laugh, to get that muscle moving in the mind, so that we start thinking that life is a little bit better or a little bit worth laughing at. And so my way of doing that is every week I always find a comedy podcast to listen to, and I do it quite purposefully because I actually want to have a giggle. Sometimes I just laugh because I think things are funny, and my husband always makes me laugh. He always does funny things. Or just lay back and read a funny book, or have a laugh out loud moment. But such a good emotion. It makes the tummy muscles work. It makes you breathe. Sometimes it makes you cry. So here we go. Habits to help you, and laughter is one of them. And if you've got depression, you'll find that you're not laughing very much. And sometimes you just have to make yourself do it. Start the machine working, get the crank handle out and crank up that brain. And I say that with reservation, because I know some people have been quite poorly. And if they've got very bad depression, that wouldn't be an easy thing to do. And you would need help from your mental health practitioner with that. So here we are. We're talking about a theme here. We're talking about bringing things back to basics, de-stressing, decluttering, and decomplicating your life. We're talking about letting those hormones flow and create much happier hormones for the brain. And I'm telling you, it is possible to do that. You can shift this around. You can see a change quite quickly. But most of all, you can put yourself as a parent back in the driving seat. You can start to feel like you're taking control, and you don't have to panic, because it does not have to be done yesterday, which is a recipe for panic. You can give yourself the next year to be making gradual changes, small steps forward, time management, tidy a drawer, think together, find the food that's great for the body, and generally start to bring in calm. been great to talk to you. I'm thinking about busy families. I love to help families so that we can help children have great lives. I look forward to talking to you again soon. Thank you for listening. Check out the next episode on our platform. Don't forget, I'm a doctor of psychotherapy, not medicine or clinical psychology. My expertise lies in the field of applied psychology through psychotherapeutic models of practice. This podcast is not intended for diagnosis or treatment of any kind. If you are concerned about your mental health, do consult your doctor, who will guide you. If you are ever in a mental health crisis within the UK, dial 999. In all other parts of the world, check your mental health facilities or turn to someone who will support you.